Well, annual inflation in the December quarter accelerated to 7.8%, and that's the highest rate since March 1990. The quarterly rate jumped 1.9%, up from 1.3% the previous quarter. Now, among the highest price rises during the quarter, travel costs and electricity. Domestic holiday travel and accommodation jumped 13.3% during the period. International travel, 7.6% more expensive. And electricity, this is partly due to the unwinding of a $400 electricity credit in WA, also up 7.6%. Now, as Ed said, eyes will now turn to the Reserve Bank. It watched underlying inflation, of course. The trim mean, it was up by 1.7% during the quarter, by 6.9% for the year. Now, this is clearly well above its target range of 2 to 3%. Here's how Treasurer Jim Chalmers interpreted the inflation data at his press conference in Canberra earlier today.
This is very high inflation by historical standards. There's no use pretending otherwise. It's unacceptably high. It's in line with the Treasury forecasts for inflation, and it's almost as high as the Reserve Bank's forecast for inflation as well. Now, this is likely the peak in inflation, but we won't know that for sure until we get the numbers for this March quarter that we're in now.
So let's bring in here Shadow Treasurer Angus Taylor. Angus, many thanks for your fight. This, of course, is not necessarily a political fight. It's an economic fight. But if you were Treasurer today, is there anything different you'd be doing to try and stem the growth in these inflation numbers, in the prices that Australians are having to pay?
Well, Ross, as you said up front, this is a big number. It's above expectations. And it says that inflation is stubbornly persistent. Everyone expects it to come down over time, but it is very, very stubborn. Now, in terms of what can be done, I think the question should be as much what shouldn't be done. And if we look at the price caps that Labor put in place for energy, I don't think they're going to help at all. In fact, I think if anything, they'll make the situation worse by curbing supply and putting upward pressure on prices that way. The industrial relations changes that they brought in last year, again, I think they're going to exacerbate the situation. What you don't need in an inflationary environment is a toxic industrial relations environment. It only makes the situation worse, and we saw what happened with exactly that in the 1970s. And of course, what you don't need as well is a big spending budget. We saw an extra more than $100 billion of spending in the October budget, and all signs are we're going to see a lot more spending in the May budget. That's not what's needed. And what's needed is sensible fiscal policy and economic reforms and industry-specific initiatives that take pressure off inflation. That we know from history that's how you deal with it. That takes pressure off the Reserve Bank, but there's going to be a lot of pressure now on the Reserve Bank to increase interest rates come February and beyond.